You're standing in the middle of the intersection. Horns blare. A cyclist brushes your arm, muttering something obscene. The lights turned green but no one's moving. Your phone buzzes in your pocket. Again. You forgot to respond to that email. You forgot to eat. You forgot what you were even walking toward. There's a peculiar sensation in your chest, like someone's tightening a string around your ribs. This isn't a panic attack, you think. You've had those before. This is quieter, but heavier. Chaos doesn't always come screaming. It often arrives as a whisper. And in that moment, you ask yourself the question, is calm even an option anymore? You didn't wake up hoping for peace today. You woke up checking the news, checking your messages, checking the temperature of everyone else's opinions before you even checked your own breath. And so the day steamrolls forward, with or without your consent. You walk into meetings where no one listens. You scroll through headlines engineered to provoke. Your thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios like they've rehearsed them 1,000 times. You play out arguments that haven't happened yet and may never happen at all. But you feel them anyway, like bruises from invisible blows. That's when you remember something Marcus Aurelius said, though you don't recall where. Just the echo. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. It sounds noble, maybe even naive, but you're willing to test it, because what's the alternative? Another day of being yanked around by the chaos of everything and everyone? You pause. Not a long pause. Just long enough to feel your feet on the ground. To notice how you're clenching your jaw. How your shoulders have been trying to become your ears. You're not a monk on a mountain. You're a commuter, an employee, a friend, a partner. But even here, in this everyday battlefield, there's a doorway to stillness. It's not hidden. It's just quiet. A thought emerges. What if I'm the calmest person in this room? Not the loudest. Not the most productive. Not the fastest or the smartest. Just you try it. A meeting where everyone is panicking. Your voice stays low. The barista gets your order wrong. Your eyes soften. The driver cuts you off. You let it pass. Not because you're passive, because you're choosing. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They weren't robotic. They were masters of one sacred skill, attention. They knew chaos would come, so they trained not to eliminate it, but to outlast it. Seneca once described life like being on a ship during a storm. The waves would throw the vessel around, but the sailor's role wasn't to stop the sea, it was to grip the wheel and steer. Even with trembling hands. You grip your own wheel today. Gently but firmly. Of course, modern chaos doesn't look like swords and sand. It looks like a double-booked calendar. A confrontation in your DMs. A partner who suddenly goes silent. But the stakes still feel existential. And that feeling is real. What you forget sometimes, though, is that your reaction is the one variable you always own. You don't have to amplify the noise just because it's loud. You take a walk. No headphones. No goal. Just movement. And then it hits you. Calm isn't something you get. It's something you practice. In the silence. In the slowness. In the refusal to match chaos beat for beat. There's a phrase that echoes through Stoic circles. Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands, unmoved, while the fury of the sea falls still around it. You wonder if you can be that rock. Maybe not all the time. Maybe not today. But in this one moment, this breath, you choose to stay still while the world flails. That's how the practice begins. And whether you're on the subway or in a storm, the invitation is always there. You don't need perfect conditions. You need presence. You don't need to escape chaos. You need to stop confusing it with power. And you don't need a new app or a new plan or a retreat in Bali. You just need to pause. Right now. You're in the kitchen now, trying to make dinner, but the sauce is burning and your inbox is overflowing and someone just asked you what your 5-year plan is. You want to laugh or maybe scream. There's a hum beneath your skin, like your whole nervous system is holding its breath. You don't want to admit it, but you feel like a balloon stretched too tight. This is the modern version of being under siege. And somehow, amidst it all, you're supposed to feel calm? But here's the catch. Stoicism was made for this. Not for when things are easy, but for moments like this, when your emotions are louder than your logic, and the world feels like a badly wired fire alarm. And yet the Stoics would ask, what are you adding to the fire? That's the first uncomfortable truth you start to face when you commit to calmness. Your mind, left unchecked, doesn't just absorb chaos, it contributes to it. You overthink. You project. You relive moments that no longer exist and pre-live disasters that may never come. A friend doesn't respond to your message and your brain spins. Did I offend them? Are they mad? What if this ruins everything? But pause. Breathe. Ask, is this helpful? Is this certain? Most of the time, it's neither. Overthinking is just the ego's attempt to control what it cannot. And the Stoic knows. Control is an illusion that exhausts you. Serenity begins where control ends. Epictetus once said, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. And you start to realize you've been judging everything lately. Harshly. Yourself most of all. So you slow the movie down. You watch the thought arise, I must have done something wrong. And instead of believing it immediately, you investigate it. Like a detective, not a judge. You ask, is that the only interpretation? Can I know that for sure? What if I just let it go until I have real evidence? That's not denial. That's strength. You remember a time, maybe a month ago, when a friend canceled plans last minute. You felt rejected. You told yourself a whole story, how they don't care about you, how they're fading out. But later, you found out their parent was in the hospital. And your overthinking had built a prison, one you didn't need to live in. You see, calmness doesn't mean indifference. It means clarity. And clarity only comes when you stop treating every anxious thought like gospel. There's a term psychologists use, metacognition. It means thinking about your thoughts. The Stoics practiced this centuries ago. They didn't just feel anger or fear, they noticed it. They questioned it. They reframed it. They didn't say, don't feel. They said, don't let your feelings decide your next move without a proper trial. So now, standing in the kitchen, with the sauce burned and the to-do list screaming, you don't spiral. You observe. You catch yourself wanting to snap at your partner, wanting to hurl the wooden spoon, wanting to check your phone again for a dopamine drip. Instead, you wash the pan. You stir gently. You say, I'm overwhelmed, instead of pretending you're not. And something strange happens. The chaos doesn't vanish, but you stop feeding it. Seneca wrote about the inner citadel, a place inside you that no one can touch. No comment, no delay, no missed call can storm those gates. You imagine yours now, high walls, a quiet garden, a chair in the center. It's waiting for you. You don't have to live in overthinking. You don't have to drown in noise. You don't even have to fix everything. You just have to return to that citadel. One breath at a time. Maybe this is what being calm in chaos really looks like. Not detachment, not escape, but presence. Power without volume. Stillness without silence. You clean up the kitchen. You reply to one email. You text your friend back with no hidden tone. The storm rages outside. But inside, a candle stays lit. Later that night, you find yourself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, your body still, but your mind sprinting laps like it's in a midnight marathon. What if you never figure things out? What if something goes wrong tomorrow? What if you're just not enough? That inner monologue, once subtle, now whispers like a relentless narrator. It's your brain playing whack-a-mole with every regret, every imagined failure, every potential embarrassment. But what if you didn't have to win the game? What if you could simply stop playing? The Stoics had no term for anxiety in the modern sense, but they understood its engine. Fear of the unknown. Fear of loss. Fear of looking foolish. And they knew the antidote is not certainty, it's perspective. You start to examine that thought. What if I fail tomorrow? Then what? You picture it, messing up the presentation, saying the wrong thing, making the wrong call. You walk through the whole embarrassment in your mind like a rehearsal of shame. Then something remarkable happens. It doesn't kill you. You remember how Seneca advised people to practice misfortune, not because it's fun, but because it shrinks the monster. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, he said. You've been suffering from phantoms, and it's time to stop renting them space. You flip the question. What if things go right? What if you're more prepared than you think? What if the outcome doesn't matter nearly as much as the courage it takes to show up? The Stoic doesn't eliminate uncertainty. They befriend it. That's your next step in staying calm in chaos. Cultivating emotional neutrality when outcomes are unclear. You don't attach your peace to the result. You anchor it in effort. Remember the time you sent that risky message? The one that made your heart pound? You expected rejection. But what came back was kindness. It's like that. The worst rarely comes. And when it does, you're stronger than you thought. Modern psychology calls this exposure therapy, facing your fears to reduce their power. But the Stoics had their own version, premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. They imagined failure not to manifest it, but to strip it of mystery. You try that now. You picture losing your job. You picture being misunderstood. You picture getting sick, growing old, watching people leave. And it's terrible, but you survive the thought. And then you breathe. It doesn't crush you because you're not resisting anymore. A feeling only controls you when you fear it. Once you stare it down, once you welcome it in for tea and ask its name, it becomes smaller, familiar, manageable. This is the Stoics' calm in chaos, not a denial of darkness, but a steady hand while lighting the lantern. You get up, walk to the kitchen, drink water slowly. You whisper to yourself, I can't control what happens, but I can control how I show up. You write that down, tape it to your mirror, because chaos is inevitable, but panic is optional. The philosophers argued over many things, but most agreed on one key virtue, courage. Not just bravery in war or confrontation, but the quiet courage of being present with uncertainty. There's a story about Marcus Aurelius, writing in his tent during a plague and a war. The empire was crumbling, his health was fragile, and yet he wrote calmly, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You're not in a tent, but you're under siege by deadlines, fears, and noise. And your pen, your version of strength, is your breath, your awareness, your refusal to be hijacked by imagination. The historians still debate whether Marcus wrote those words for himself or his men. But it doesn't matter. You've inherited them now. You turn off the light. You let the noise be noise. You lie back down, not to fight your mind, but to watch it pass by like clouds. Eventually, one breath becomes two. Thought becomes space. And somewhere between the inhale and the exhale, you begin to fall asleep. Not because the chaos is gone, but because your grip has loosened. Morning comes, not with fanfare, but with that quiet, gray light sneaking in through your curtains. You're not ready, but you rise anyway. That's where it begins again. In the small decision to show up. You step into your day, and almost instantly, something goes wrong. Maybe a message you didn't want to receive. Maybe silence from someone whose voice you were counting on. The emotions start rising, tight in your chest, heat behind your eyes. And just like that, the calm slips. You feel betrayed by your own brain. After all the work, after all the breathing, why does one rude text still sting so badly? Here's the thing the Stoics never promised: immunity. They weren't robots. They got angry, scared, disappointed. But they practiced what you're about to do now, pausing at the threshold of reaction. You sit with the feeling, really sit. It's not weakness to feel. It's weakness to flee from feeling. This is where the Stoic strength lies, not in repression, but in mastery. You remember Epictetus' words, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Harsh maybe, but honest. You always have a choice. So you choose, not to lash out, not to bury it, but to hold it like something fragile and ask, what's beneath this anger? You find it or fear, or disappointment. You find a younger version of yourself who just wanted to be understood. And suddenly, you're not mad anymore. You're tender, with yourself. You respond to the message, not with passive aggression, but with clarity. Not with silence, but boundaries. That's the Stoic move. Not to disappear into cold distance, but to meet the chaos with elegant control. There's a story about Cato the Younger, who was once spat on by a political opponent. He didn't flinch, didn't strike back. He simply wiped his face and walked away. Later, when asked why he didn't respond, he said, "I would rather people question my composure than confirm my rage." That story sticks with you, not because it tells you to be weak, but because it shows you what real strength looks like. You're not avoiding confrontation. You're mastering yourself before the confrontation. Later in the day, you're sitting in traffic, someone cuts you off, your coffee spills in your lap, your phone buzzes again. It's almost comical. The chaos escalates, and so does the temptation to spiral. But this time you chuckle. Not bitterly, but almost warmly. Because now you see it, life doesn't owe you smoothness. It owes you nothing. And you owe it only one thing: your integrity. You remember what Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every spilled coffee, every rude driver, every botched plan, they're not punishments. They're polish. You start to embrace the idea. Maybe discomfort isn't something to be escaped, but something to be practiced. Modern self-help tells you to manifest your desires. The Stoics say, manifest your discipline. You think of that again as you walk into a difficult meeting. You're prepared to be misunderstood, interrupted, underestimated. But you stay calm, because your validation isn't for sale. And your worth isn't up for negotiation. You speak clearly, breathe slowly. You watch your emotions rise and fall like waves, but you don't let them steer the ship. This isn't detachment, it's presence. You're fully there, but you're not consumed. This moment, this one, is where the old version of you would have crumbled. But you don't. You've trained for this. The historians debate whether the Stoics were too emotionally distant. Some argue they lacked warmth, too focused on logic. But then again, these were men who grieved, who wrote love letters, who cried over the deaths of friends. They weren't cold. They were disciplined. And now, so are you, because you no longer confuse emotion with identity. You feel anger, but you're not angry. You feel sadness, but you're not broken. You are the one who observes, who chooses, who responds. As the day ends, you take one last walk outside. The sky is pink, the air soft. You breathe, not to calm down, but to remember, you're here. You made it. You survived not just the chaos, but your own reaction to it. And in doing so, you've built something that no one can take from you: inner quiet. The city glows in the dark. Neon signs blink like nervous thoughts, and somewhere in the distance, someone shouts. A siren wails. A dog barks back. The world refuses to sleep, and neither do your thoughts. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling. And here comes chaos again, not as events, but as memory. A conversation you wish had gone differently. A mistake that still stings. A version of you that still lingers in regret. This is where the Stoic fight becomes internal. Not about what the world does to you, but what you do to yourself in the quiet. Overthinking, the classic thief. You replay everything. What if you had said this? Done that? Maybe they wouldn't have left. Maybe you'd be further along by now. Maybe you wouldn't feel so behind. But here's where the Stoics give you a gift sharper than any modern affirmation. You are not what you regret. You are what you do about it now. You remember Marcus Aurelius, scribbling by candlelight. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You sit up, exhale slowly. You begin sorting thought from noise. You don't need to judge every mistake again. You've served that sentence. Instead, you reflect, honestly, without flattery or punishment. Where did you stray from your principles? Where did you compromise your own voice? Then you promise quietly, tomorrow, you'll do better. Not perfectly, just better. You are not a sum of errors. You are a work in progress with full editorial control. You write in your journal, not some profound entry, just truth. Today I stayed calm in moments that used to destroy me. Today I learned my triggers. Today, I noticed how I wanted to run, but didn't. The simple act of writing becomes resistance against the storm in your head. There's a story of a Stoic woman, less written about than the famous men, who, during the sack of her city, calmly braided her hair as the enemy approached. When asked why, she said, "Because I meet death dressed like a human being." You're not facing death tonight, but you are facing ghosts. and you're showing up to greet them like a human being, eyes open, jaw unclenched, spine tall. You forgive yourself for the years you let panic steer. You understand now, overthinking was always a survival tactic, trying to predict pain before it arrived. But you're not in danger tonight. You're just alone with a mind trained to worry. And that mind is learning a new path. You turn off your phone. The silence at first feels threatening, but then it stretches, opens, softens. You close your eyes. You don't escape the chaos. You hold it with both hands and say, "You don't scare me anymore." The historians still debate whether the Stoics were optimists or realists, whether they truly believed humans could be peaceful in a world like this. But here's what no one can deny: they tried. Every day they practiced. Every day they stumbled and stood again. And now so do you. This is what makes you part of the tradition, not your books, not your quotes, but your repetition. The quiet fight you show up for every night. Tomorrow will come, and with it, new uncertainties. You won't predict them all, but you'll meet them with poise, like someone who's no longer afraid of their own mind. And that is what calm really is, not an empty room, but a sturdy self. One who walks into chaos and doesn't vanish. And now you rest, not in ignorance, not because the chaos has passed, but because you've finally made peace with what you can't control. Your breath slows. The thoughts still swirl, but you've stopped chasing them. You let them rise like smoke, then fade into the night. The war isn't gone, but you've called a truce with yourself. In this moment, there is no timeline, no pressure to fix your whole life tonight. Just this breath, just this stillness. You've walked through 5 layers of chaos, from the screaming streets to the whispering mind, and you're still here, still grounded, still you. And this is the ultimate Stoic triumph, not immunity from suffering, but clarity within it. The courage to say, even if the world burns, I won't set fire to myself. That's not just philosophy, that's peace earned. The philosophers might call this ataraxia, a soul undisturbed, a mind that witnesses without crumbling, a heart that aches, but chooses dignity anyway. You won't always feel this calm. Life will find new ways to shake you, but now you know the path back. It's here, in the pause, in the breath, in the choice to not make things worse. Sleep now, not to escape, but to repair. You've earned it. What do you do when everything around you feels out of control? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next chapter of Stoic Emotions.